Peace, peace. What's going on, fam? We're getting ready to get it in. We're on here to close the loop on a couple of things and get it in. Hold on, we're getting ready to get started. Buckle up. Yes, and so now we are together. So if you get an opportunity, work with your brother. Work with your brother. We here. Part of the challenge that we have frequently is getting it worked out, where my usual end of the month updates on Sundays has been impacted, because of the way that I roll with family. So each day is usually packed with things. And one of these days, what I'll do is I'm going to do a day in the life, because a lot of folks are like, Inpu, how is it that you, father of five, head of a, founder and head of a martial arts association, teaching Tai Chi, working full time, doing that, man, that cooking that you see on the internet, we see the photos, man, and you're not putting up no plates and nothing for no one. What's that about? How are you able to do all of that? So we'll talk about that in an upcoming, we're gonna do that Sundays with Seba as we head into the fall. I want to get a few things out. Check out the link tree if you're on either our Facebook, or if you're checking this out on our YouTube or on our IG, go to our link tree and brothers sign up for Saturday's Million Man Meditation. Okay, it's the 5th annual. It's going to be Saturday morning. It's virtual. Your brother's going to be on there. We're going to be sharing some of our Qigong, some of our energy work, our breath work that we do to engage the body, particularly looking at the lungs, large intestine, as we are in the fall fully right now. And we're coming back, really wanting to get in and talk about, want to close the loop on some things with regard to the last live we did. And I'm going to list out what those things are. And then I want to, tonight is the second night of the full moon. And so I'm going to revisit just very briefly some pieces on working with the moon system, the lunar system, in terms of your martial practice, in terms of your spiritual practice, looking at it in terms of the relationships with Kemet and the Kepra Netridu, a transformation into the Netridu. So what we're going to really get into tonight, we're going to look at first spring water. Why spring water on a fast? In general, on the fast that we've done thus far with the Kemetic Aha and Sama Association, why are you using spring water? We're going to talk about the cycles. Again, we've got previous ones you can go back and check. It's called, what's it called? I think it's called our healing work or liberation tools on both our YouTube channel and here on our Instagram. It's called Liberation Tools. So you want to take the time to check it out, so that what you can do is to catch the previous ones. I've got one on cycles, not time, but cycles. And so with this one, we're going to talk about how those cycles connect to the earth, regarding what is the solstice and what do they mean. It's going to get a little bit into that, give you some information to research and follow up, and talk about some people both on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, if you can follow, that can take you deeper. Because like I said, I want to keep these conversational, keep it a little bit light to give you the information so you can go and do the research. And then if you have questions, we can come back and we can build later, right? And then we're going to talk about, in terms of fasting, why no commercials? Why are we watching stuff with commercials? And then the main piece is why no sex? And the why no sex, and then we're also going to talk about how does room temperature water, help with a great number of issues dealing with the body. And we're going to look at healing from a life cycle perspective. All right, so that's what we're going to cover. And I know it sounds like it's a lot. It's going to be brief. I know it's a Thursday night. Some folks are caught into the approved distractions from this culture, and watching basketball or checking out, maybe it's the Dodgers or whatever baseball thing is happening, or football, or whatever the approved distraction of your choice. I'm grateful that you're able to choose to spend some time here with your brother. I'm grateful. All right. And I know many of us got multiple screens. You may have something else going on the other one. So I'm glad that even if you split screened, that you here with your brother. So let's break it down. So now My elders, and this goes all the way back to the 90s, there has been this discussion in our community about water, 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 okay? When we do a fast, a general fast, usually at the seasons, we're not talking about a fast for health, a fast for cleansing. If you're doing a health-specific fast, then there's a reason why you would want to use different types of water, meaning distilled water or spring water. The body doesn't really, well, my elders, Dr. Goss among them, peace be upon him, talked about spring water as being the water that the body recognizes as water. Alkaline water, even if you throw some lemon in it, which makes it alkaline, does not respond to the body, doesn't respond to it completely as water, because you're altering some of the chemical makeup. And alkaline water in its natural state, not from the machines, but its natural state, is what we want it, is beneficial for the body. But you have to remember, the body has its own natural homeostasis process. Your body's not going to be alkaline. The whole purpose of using alkaline foods is a way of healing the body and the rapid acclimation of the body, assimilation, of the foods into the body. That's where the alkaline piece gets in. I'm not here to debate folks around this. What I'm talking about is the water. So let me get back to my topic around it. We use spring water specifically because spring water is supposed to have life. And the reason it's supposed to have life is it still has the minerals that are in it. Even if it's purified, reverse osmosis, they put the minerals back into the water. And you can check this out because the water that you get should be able to sustain a charge. Okay? And again, this is important. This was one of the main things about dealing with moving and running water, was that it has an ambient current. In other words, life. Okay, it stimulates life through this ambient current. And so if that's the water that you have, that water is living, and it's able, again, we talk about taking living things in, which is why we're also doing the raw fast. Get as close to the earth as possible. Spring water does that. And again, I want to remind folks that I'm not on some high horse about, I got spring water, blah, blah, whoop de whoop. If that's not in your budget right now, use what you got. Because I come from the place that use what you got till you can get better. And by better, we mean higher quality, okay? Not higher cost, higher quality. Because there's some expensive tap water in a bottle. Y'all just ain't knowing. Okay, we're not trying to pay for marketing schemes and pretty bottle design, although you might, you want to get that in a nice grade of plastic that does not outgas, that does not leach forever chemicals into the water that you're drinking. All right. So in conclusion, spring water. Okay. If there are specific needs when you're on a fast, say like you're doing a healing or transformative fast where you're seeking to leach or pull things out of the bloodstream, out of different pieces, that's when you want to look at what other types of water I may want to utilize. Okay. And you may want to do that in combination with certain other herbs, certain other plant medicines that are able to replenish that particular process of what's being extracted, okay? What's being leached from the system. So you have to remember that, I said I didn't want to get all too heavy into the water. Just understand that we use spring water. The main reasons that we're using spring water is that it's alive, it carries a charge, and that because of that, and because of the unique properties of living water, you have the opportunity to, the water has memory, okay? And so water also wants to remain whole. And so what we're doing, without going too heavy into, the specialness of water on this planet, I would really just invite you to understand that water is the only substance that when it freezes, it floats on itself. So it's lighter when it's frozen. So it floats on itself. Okay. Water is special. And it's so special that it's also connected to the divine feminine. But that's flowing water, not necessarily the stuff that comes through the tap. We're talking about rivers, streams, lakes, brooks, untapped, undammed, okay, free. Everything about this culture is about constraining femininity, even down to the water we drink. It's got to come through a dam. And so as we have mistreated women, we want to take a deeper look at how that impacts our water access, particularly spring water, how that deals with what exactly it is that we call ourselves here. All right. All right. So I really need y'all to understand that this, when we're talking about this spring water and water in general, I really, really want y'all to explore this from the way our ancestors would look at it. We use water for libation. We use water to connect with ancestors. We want to create the space where water is returned to its place of reverence. All right. Remember, after air, water's next. And so you heard me start off talking about our Qigong session that we're going to be doing on Saturday. So we started with breath, getting the breath going, getting the breathing, expanding the lungs, learning how to breathe properly. And we've gone over that in previous sessions where we talked about what we call our bellows breathing, right? And so you can check that out. I'm not getting into the breathing. We're just dealing with water right now. We got the water in. And now as we talk to the water, I want to talk about cycles. And this is important because most folks are going to go for the okie doke, but I want to explain to you, many folks think that, the solstice, the equinox, and we're all on this woo-woo shit, so I want to be able to clarify for you what's happening in a way that you can understand, and that has, it's going to be difficult for folks with scientific method and the Western applications to combat this type of science. So what we're talking about is the solstice. They have it on a fixed day. So, it's either 21st or 22nd. It varies a little bit, but it's on those days. And what the solstice means literally is that it's either the longest day or the shortest day in terms of where the sun is. So you have the summer solstice, where it's the longest day of light. And that has, depending upon your culture and the way in which your culture has its cosmology, some unique things attached to it. The same with the winter solstice. Now, the equinox, both the vernal and autumnal or fall equinox, sit in a space where the day is supposed to be equal light, equal dark. And that basically means 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness. And that's what brought me to this. And it's beautiful because tonight is the second night of the full moon. And so I'm going to go into it, not with the full moon. I'm going to come back to the full moon. But I'm going to talk about this recent equinox so that folks have a better understanding and grounding over what's happening so that we don't get lost in the sauce, all right? So I'm going to break it down. First, we're going to start with the days. Okay, so you get a day, and the sun does what? The sun rises? No, the sun does not rise. Okay, the earth rotates on its axis. And so if the earth rotates on its axis, the sun appears to rise from the direction that we've called east or left, according to our ancestors. You'd have right, which would be the west, or Ament, judging from the oldest civilization on the planet coming out of Kemet, coming out of Africa. So that left deals with sunrise and those sorts of things, and the right deals with the sunset. We won't get into too much around that, but that's, of course, facing south. That's why I can say that I'm facing south. It's real simple. But the cycle you want to understand is that people saying grand rising right now are not saying it as a way of saying, part of it is the whole good morning, and people want to play around with the words around that. I don't want to play with the words. I want you to understand it in this way. Is it grand? When was the last time you saw the sunrise? And I'm playing calling it sunrise. When was the last time you saw the disk appear above the gap in the mountains? As it changed colors, and then the light comes, and then we are engulfed and immersed in the light. When was the last time you saw the sunrise? Where is your awe for the universe? We're not using our water properly. We're not breathing properly. We don't even understand the cycles of how we are on this planet. We got folks that believe stuff, and I'm gonna talk about it. Belief is just opens the door. Belief gets you in the door. How do you stay in the room? How do you advance? That comes with what? Knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. You got to be able to build, not just believe. You got to know. And how can you know if there's no experience? So as we begin this and we're going through this, solstice basically means 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark. Today, arbitrarily, the solstice was set for, the solstice, the equinox, equa meaning same. The equinox was set for the 22nd of September this year. Although if you understand the science, you'll know that the first day that there was 12 hours of sunlight and 12 hours of darkness was September 26th. And so if we're trying to also use those dates to connect to people's so-called, Western astrological signs or horoscopes, those are also connected to the equinox and the solstice season. So you see here how we got, now people have to understand some questions. People don't understand that the earthquakes that we have, that the volcano eruptions shift the axis or the tilt of the planet, and that has an impact on what we experience in terms of the rotational speed of the planet, which actually has an impact on what we consider a year is. All right. Now, I'm not going to get all deep off into it, but I just want you to understand that this planet changes. It goes through its own cycles. The sun has its own cycles that it goes through. And I say that because the solstice is just one moment. It's 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark. And that didn't happen until 26th in September. You can forecast that, and you can take a look, and you can see what that's going to be for the winter solstice. And you can see what day will be the shortest day of light. And I'm willing to bet you it's not going to be the 21st or 22nd, although this year it may be, because of the way the cycles have lined up. You have an opportunity to check it out. All right. I entreat you to verify the information so that we're not walking around parroting things that we don't know. Things you may be acquainted with, things you may have heard, things you may have read. Just because you read it doesn't mean you know it. One of the reasons our ancestors prized geometry was because you were able to prove it, geometrical proofs. Well, we won't get into that. That'll be another time when we'll go down the path where I'll probably just share someone else's work in terms of the math. So that you can understand that our ancestors had a very full understanding of math, such that when we're talking about the earth and these cycles, we knew that the earth was round and that it rotated around the sun, and the sun rotated around another star as well. Okay, we good? We designed temples around the appearance and disappearance of certain stars. Not going to get into that too heavy. I just want to get that out there. So now the main thing I want you to understand is that much of the cosmologies of all of the spiritual systems and the other pieces is based off of its relative perspective from the earth. Okay, from earth. So it's not talking about what it is on another planet, so relative to everything that we can see from this planet, that's how the cosmologies unfold. That's how some of the spiritual systems unfold based on our understanding of the stars relative to what it looks like on this planet. And I have to say it that way because many of our ancestors understood through the way in which we measured that there are different ways to measure things. And modern science didn't really grasp that as a concept until they needed to get to the moon. Because Newtonian physics doesn't get you there, Einstein's physics did. That's a whole different conversation. You can look that up on your own. And that's just because Newton, when he was exposed to African science, the same with Leipzig when they developed calculus based off of the drawings from the Middle chair or from the walls and the adaptation of things that they got out of Kemet as they jointly developed calculus, one in Germany, one in Britain, because they had been exposed to the same information at the same time, the same translations. It aided them in developing what they said they developed calculus. Although that's not what Newton said, the way Newton said it. I mean, he tried to say he did it, but he gave some history and support to where he got that information. All right. So I really want you to think about and remember that the solstice is the longest day. The equinox is the longest day of light. 12, it's balanced. Excuse me. I'm looking at what I wrote, and so forgive me. So it's like the autumnal equinox is balanced. But in terms of that balance, it didn't happen until September 26th. And this is all connected to the fast. And this is why we started the fast on a particular time and we ended on a particular date, so that for anyone that is still using the fast as a way to purify their system, heal their bodies, and do any type of cultural ritual connected to the solstice, we're still going through that process on the 26th. All right. And you can check your calendar that we provide. We provide that information so that you have the opportunity to know when and where a great number of things are happening that can aid you in your practice and your cultivation of your energies and the resetting on the body. Now we're going to go to our next topic, which is why do we not watch anything with commercials during the fast? The main reason we don't want to have folks watching commercials during the fast is this one. Most of the commercials on television are for food or drugs. If you're watching a food commercial and you're not eating cooked food, and all this is for is cooked food, you're going to see it in a very different light. It begins to look like porn. You begin to see how they drizzle the sauce over, how it spurts out, or how when they're slicing it, how it opens up, or how the mouth opens and gently caresses the food that they put in the mouth, and the way it oozes out. And so it's designed inherently to be sexual, to stimulate the lower chakra response, okay, root chakra. The point for what we're working on is that's not where we want to spend our time and energy. Our work during the fast is to elevate our energy, to recycle the energy that's going through the body. So listening to commercials, listening to music that is not uplifting, and by uplifting, I don't mean by your personal choice. If you're listening to or watching things that are destructive to the human body, destructive to our people, that becomes a mantra, or that becomes a statement that you begin repeating over and over and over again. I don't want to celebrate death, particularly the death of my folks, by the hands of my people. So we want to get away from commercial-driven content and get to content during this time that reconnects us to the earth, reconnects us to the cycles of the cosmos, and reconnects us to our families and our people around here that have far more value. Well, a great deal of that value we remember just from our relationship to what has happened in the last year. If you take a look at what happened in this last year, everybody was home for a year. Everyone that had big families or grew up with big families didn't have a whole lot of issues. It was just remembering how to deal with a lot of people in your spot. Many of us, because we were getting to that space of no commercials, it was a way for us to reorient and to use that time to get centered, get rooted, to use the materials from whatever practice of spirituality or religious practice to deepen our relationship to that practice, to deepen our relationship with our loved ones, to develop and cultivate intimacy. And we talked about this a bit with Brother Dr. Harukuti on my Sundays with Rev and Seba this past Sunday. Check that out. We're going to be talking about sex for the rest of this year, really helping folks to understand how the body works, how the body functions, not just from a place, but from the intersection. So in this particular time, when we fast, there's no sex the way we would normally think of it. So no penetration. That's approved, brother. Good to see you here. And by what that means is that many folks are so colonized that they look at sex as a penetrative act that goes until the male releases his bodily fluids. It's not sex. And for many of us, we don't look at it that way, but men are programmed and they're damaged to look at the body that way, as are women. And this is before we even get into how do we heal that. So we spend this time while we're building up the energy of the body, the foods and things that we are eating provide nutritive value so that they shift the way that the body is operating. We're doing the Tai Chi Chuan, the Qigong, the breathing exercises, the meditation, the yoga, sama. We're meditating as well. We're getting up to see the sunrise and sunset and the moon rise and the moon set. And we're spending loving, intimate time with our families. So that's why no commercials, no TV, no ugly, violent stuff, just for these periods, just for the fast. You can go back to that death music and, death and violence and approved distractions at any time. It's available 24/7 all over your internet. And so we know that. And because of that, we just want to spend this time period when you're on the fast to focus on unplugging, checking out yourself, your people. And so we go with no sex because now we know that because you're not eating so much, and by that I mean you're eating raw, so the system is getting flushed, you're actually going to the bathroom more frequently if you're using your spring water and you're using the fresh fruits and vegetables that you're eating, you're going to the restroom more. So you're having a different relationship with your bowels, different relationship with the colon and anus, different relationship with your urethra and either your cot, which is or your henen for males and cot for women. Those are the Kemetic terms. We can say yani or lingam for males. I'm not going to use the colonizer terms or their sanitized version of what they'd be called in a clinical setting, because that's also just as colonized. I want you to think about when we're talking about these words and these terms, that we want to begin to use them the way that our ancestors did, to take it out of a violent perspective, to look at it in terms. Now, there are times when you may want to be have a strong reciprocating motion, a strong bounce or rhythm to your process during your penetrative practices, but you got plenty of time to do that. I mean, many of us have been doing that since we was teenagers. If you're my age now and you're still trying to get out like you 15, 17, 19, 22, what have you learned? I've learned that if you can't do it slow, you can't do it fast. Most people go fast because they can't go slow, because it'll show that the form is bad, the structure is bad, the foundation is weak. Feel me? And also shows that you don't understand the human body. Men as well as women, in order to be in optimal condition, take 18 to 25 minutes just to be in a position to be ready to have this intercourse. Most folks are done in 18 to 25 minutes. And I'm being generous for most of y'all, all right? You don't understand orgasm. And so utilizing this time of the fast 4 times a year, it enables you to explore what not having sex in an intentional way is really about. to deepen your relationship to touch, to heal the trauma and the settler colonial perspectives that you have around physical touch, around intimacy with your partner, what that looks like. Because I give out, you could, at the end of every evening, I talk about, body butter, ladies, shea butter. And I talk about how you use that, because when it's a first cold press, it's food grade, it's organic. And if you need a scent, they have it in this, be it essential, organic essential oils. That shea butter is an anti-inflammatory. That's the properties, as well as being, SPF and all that stuff. But it's anti-inflammatory. So when you're rubbing that with your partner, not only are you using a soothing, healing massage on the hands or the feet, and you can look up the reflexology for foot massage to see what all the nerve endings are in the hands and the feet. So when you start rubbing there, it has a relationship to all the other parts of the body. So just rubbing your partner's feet with some shea butter will increase the intimacy. And we all know that the skin, notice I'm got a little shiny here, but that's just because, I like to keep the butter popping. Can't be ashy out there, y'all. You know what I'm saying? And that's really important, because if you're with your partner, how do you know what your partner's elbow feels like? How many of y'all? The back of their knee, their calf, the ankle, the Achilles tendon, right? What about their stomach? What about the point between the elbow and the shoulder? All in here, this part. So you even got my elbows glistening. See what I'm saying? Got to get it right, y'all. Because when we're with each other, and you say that, dude, you're a dude, you should be rough and ashy. Okay, my hands oiled. Still got man hands. So-called man hands. Still so-called rough, even though they're full of shea butter. That's just the way some of us are, but it also means I could absorb a little more. So men, we've not taken advantage of our traditions of self-care, of appreciation for beauty, because it has been priced as and resold to us as luxury. So we can use this time of no sex to really get into a deeper intimacy with our partner and to understand what intimacy really is. Do it with our children. Teach our children how to massage so that they learn. I used to do this with my son, with my daughters. Teach them how to care for themselves, how to use that shea butter to help themselves feel better. Teach them about the plant medicines, because we're gonna need to know this information. Now, as we get in that, for many men, they try and act like, well, I get up in the morning and, I'm ready to go. I got my morning wood and I'm, so here's how we manage that. If that's how you get up every morning, and particularly during the fast, you're feeling extra energetic, just take a drink of room temperature water. Because many of you don't know how the body works. And so that room temperature water will actually serve, because again, we're using that root chakra, so that's like that fire. And all we do with that water is it just cools the fire, okay? And what many of you don't understand is that when you drink water first thing in the morning, that's gonna address blood pressure as well. And for many men that don't have a real understanding of blood pressure is how your lingam, how your hinen, actually that your yang gets that strong yang is through the blood pressure. And so I'm just gonna throw this out there real quick to help brothers understand that if you're watching, if you're taking that blue pill or one of them knockoff pills or one of the newer pills that they try to give you to help you keep your yang up, I want you to remember your body in conversation with the cosmos is protecting you from death because you have a blood pressure issue. I need you to understand that that drug was developed initially as a heart medication. Okay, the blue pill was developed as a heart medication. And they were like, I don't think we're gonna get much on the heart piece. Say, well, what happened? Say, well, I mean, it does good with the blood pressure, but we have this interesting side effect. Said, really? Said, yeah. Said a lot of guys that are on this and take this, they have an erection because for whatever reason, what we're putting in our things. Said, well, why don't we market it as and erectile dysfunction. And you can check the history and the research of this particular drug, and you'll learn that that's what it started out as. But for us, it's imperative that we learn how our body functions. And so what I'm going to do with the next, well, basically the rest of this year, in terms of the chats that we get into, I'm going to get some graphical stuff. I'm actually going to grab, have some books, go through anatomy, and really just a real simple thing with y'all. It's going to be conversational. It's going to be at the lay level. Go through the body. Talk about it in terms of its planetary significance. I got to keep it the way I do it so that you're understanding it from a cultural perspective, but also understanding how it functions and how it relates to itself. And then I'm going to turn you on to some folks who are doing amazing work in this. Some of my elders who are doing this work, like the Blue Dragon. Hopefully y'all know the Blue Dragon, Dr. George Love, doing amazing work, helping people understand their bodies, okay? And so through that understanding of your body, that's where you'll begin dealing with fears, dealing with some of the trauma. And the reason why I'm shifting it there after we move from sex and the other pieces, like we talked at the beginning, we're right here just, want to wind up. I don't want to be on long. I just want to close by reminding you that healing, because I referenced it, is an adult responsibility. We recognize that many of us have endured a great number of traumas, are still, in some respects, enduring the trauma of living in this country during this time. Incarnating and being Black, for me, I've always looked at it as a gift, as a blessing, as a present, that I was so chosen to be here at this time. I'm grateful. Some folks are catching hell because of it. And I really just want to remind them that some of that trauma, some of that stuff, we can get off of us as adults, all right? We don't have to hold other people's shit, other people's perspectives. We can learn who we are. And that is the role of an adult. One who is able to take responsibility, not blame, because whoever, traumatized us, whoever victimized us, targeted us with their toxicity, they made a choice. And I'm not here to talk about right or wrong. We know some of that shit was just wrong. We know it was. The challenge for us now is that on the adult side, what are you going to do? How are you healing? Are you getting therapy? Black men, are you getting therapy? Are you taking care of your physical health? All right. Those of you dealing with, COVID, there's folks now that have done a great deal of research and are sharing that information on YouTube now. It was on Facebook, but there's a brother called Brandon Boland. It's called, Nidus. You can check it out there. I think Darkroom. He's done a great deal. He's a journalist, just really looking and asking the questions and following this for a local level, for those of you that are local. Check that shit out. Very helpful, very balanced in the perspective of looking at it from the perspective, how are we doing for us? What is this information? What does it look like? Not just him, there's several folks that are doing this work, trying to get us focused on how to heal. You got brother Siddiqui Bakari talking about the Empower program, all right? And one other piece, and we'll talk about Empower, we got our brother Wose Kofi Shabaka, who just opened his vegan restaurant, brick and mortar, 6619 Western, right here in Los Angeles. Please check the brother out. It's open every day now, 1 to 5. Grand opening is happening next week. Get in there. Oh my God. One of the most inspirational young men I've seen. I'm just so happy for him and his family opening the store. It's open, it's there. We can go get it. And he's a community-oriented brother. So want you to really think about that. So quickly, as I summarize, we went over why spring water, and y'all know why. Again, water is living, water is life. The reason water is life is because water is connected to the source of life. And for all of us, that means that we came here through the legs of a woman. We had our personal sunrise. Y'all can look that up yourself. I ain't gonna get into that. And we came with the healing waters. and the women provided. Y'all don't want to get into that. So yeah, I'm not going to get into woman and the understanding the God concept and that whole piece. We also talked about the cycles and how that connects to the solstice and the proper way of understanding the words equinox, what it means and when it actually happened, as opposed to when society deems it to happen. Those aren't always the same. And if you're utilizing martial arts, particularly tonight, because I called it the second night of the full moon, and I love doing this with folks who aren't necessarily martial artists, because what happens is they'll be like, well, the moon is only full one time. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. However, it's about 4 nights, depending on where the moon is and its cycle of how it orbits the earth, it can shift also. And so maybe 4 or 5, sometimes it can be even as long as 6 nights where you're out under the moon. And the light that we get from the sun, the body, the eyes, the body is designed to deal with the sun as healing light. Now, moonlight, also healing, but different. It's reflected or refracted light. And so it's a different frequency, also healing for the body, okay? And the reason that it has healing properties for the body is some things that only come alive at night. Many of you talk about the, shadow work and darkness and all this fear created from understanding the work we have to deal with from the colonizers. Need to understand that it's never dark. It's just more light or less light. It's not dark. The moon is full and we don't see the stars as frequent as well. But the night of the new moon, when things begin to get pulled out of the earth, and I'm not going to get into that. let me stop. All right. So when we get into the moon, what we really want to understand is when you're out under the moon, you spend that time communing, and the moon is both masculine and feminine, same as the sun in many cultures. And so you want to be able to explore how that manifests in your cultural expression, in your history and stories and cosmology, to see where it's masculine, where it's feminine, and understand how that balance and that cycle aids you if you're doing a martial art, where you're able to see and feel and touch and be under the moon. All right, I'm not here to talk all about the moon and the moon cycles, but again, as a practitioner of the Tai Chi Chuan, the Yang Tai Chi Chuan specifically, the movement of the earth, the movement of the planets relative to the earth, specifically the moon and sun and the others, has a direct impact in relationship to the body and which particular organs and how those organs respond. Even down to, if you're using traditional Chinese medicine, the alteration of the meridians and when they become active as opposed to inactive, and how that works with healing. Because many of our traditional methods or prescriptions were designed to work with the body at a specific time of day, and it might be, 3 hours after the moon rises, and people are like, that's just that magical bullshit. Those old ignorant folks were being superstitious, as opposed to understanding that from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., the lung meridian is active. And so if you want to do work to open up the lungs and breathe more deeply and fully, it's a great time. 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. is the large intestine. And that's when we work on clearing the bowels. So you notice when you get up, if you're properly hydrated and if you've eaten properly, one of the first places you visit is your bathroom so that you can relieve the colon and the bladder, okay? And that's because the large intestine plays a role in that. And as we're in fall, we're looking at the lungs and the large intestine. And so that also is going to connect to the kind of food that we eat that's going to build that fire within us to help us clear stuff out with the large intestine. So that's going to be ginger, right? That's going to be morning ginger tea, turmeric, black pepper, and if you're wonderful little bit of coconut oil, so you're not, or coconut milk would aid with that as you do make up your golden milk. What I'm saying is our ancestors practiced the culture. And because we practiced a culture, there was a way that we moved through cycles and space in such a way that the plant medicines augmented what we were able to do. And if you look more deeply into the way in which your body functions and you learn how it works appropriately, like I said, we're going to spend a little more time each session. You know, I'm going to plan these out so that we're going to cover a body part, how that part connects to the cosmos, how it connects to the Tai Chi Chuan, and then some herbs or plant medicines that also connect to it. In addition to the other work we're doing, like the Million Man Meditation that we have going on Saturday. That link is in the link tree on all our platforms as well. You know, if you want to support what we're doing, you know, throw a little change in the PayPal. That link is also in the link tree. We'd appreciate that. The information that we're sharing is information that I have gathered through my own research, through my own experience as, you know, formerly as an academic, no longer an academic, and also through my apprenticeship or my journeymanship with my elders in terms of understanding the human body, understanding our traditions and culture, understanding the plant medicines, and putting in the actual work with these elders to have a deeper understanding, to provide that so the community has it so we don't lose it. And in some respect, I'm, you know, recording pieces of this, the pieces that are public, the pieces I can share publicly, so that we get it in a way that benefits our people. We got to know how to take care of ourselves. We got to know how to protect ourselves. Much respect. I see the professor is in the room. Us. Glad to see you here. I'm grateful for all that took the opportunity and the time to, on a Thursday night, to get out with your brother when all the other approved distractions are available. I'm glad that you chose to spend a little time with me. I'm grateful. My name is Seba Inpu. For those that don't know, I don't use titles often or frequently, but for folks who don't know me, calling me Inpu is probably not the best thing if you don't know me. Seba works. I am a Jegna. So Seba would be just a title that means teacher. All right, brother works as well. You know, and you know, as long as you're not calling me late for dinner and you have some respect in your tone and timbre, we can get on. My goal is to get back to doing it the first and last Sundays of every month, but I have a couple I got to make up on because I missed because I was really working with my family, working to shore up some things. And when I say family, I mean, I have this KhASA, Tai Chi Chuan, Qigong family. I have my Jiu-Jitsu family with Raw Life Defense that I really cherish. And y'all, this is just an amazing time to be alive. Please take care of yourselves. Check in, get some therapy. Even if it's virtual, I'm going to be bringing back a tool that we use to help people with their social emotional challenges for men. And I'm going to work with some sisters to be able to make it possible because we want it to be gendered, specifically because the primary challenge that sisters have is with brothers in terms of their physical safety. And that's something that we as men have to begin to deal with and express and heal from and work on that. And sometimes that's not going to happen in the company of women. And the same thing for the sisters. All right. And I say all that to say that we're not here alone. We're placed on this earth to be together. Let's take this time to cultivate within ourselves a knowledge of self. And not necessarily just cultivate, it's not knowledge, let's cultivate that knowledge. So it becomes not just information, not just knowledge, it moves into an understanding and then it moves into wisdom because you apply that knowledge. So what I'm sharing here, what I'm talking about is not just because I have some shit I want to say, I want to let off. I'm sharing this so that you can use it. So that when our fast comes up in the winter for our winter solstice, it's about 3 to 7 days. I have to double check the calendar. I'll put that out for folks that are interested. You'll have a chance to get into that. And then you'll have a chance to have a deeper understanding for what so-called Christmas is really about from a different perspective, just your own perspective. You understand why Kwanzaa was put there. And whatever feelings you have about Kwanzaa, I'm going to ask you to explore and look deeper. And I'll probably do a piece on that in reference to one of my elders. Because I think that what's happened is that we've gotten so colonized that we are not able to recognize our relationship to the planet, our relationship to each other, and our relationship to the cosmos. And, you know, we just start with water. If we're not even working with water right, how are we going to do with women right? We got work. And I'm grateful to be here to work with you. Thank you so much for being here with me. This will be up in all the different platforms. I'm going to leave it up tonight on Facebook so I can upload it to our YouTube channel. And then it'll be gone on Facebook and it'll be in our YouTube channel. If you have any questions about anything I shared, please, you know, ask a question. You know, if you're getting this on YouTube, particularly, you know, share, like, hit the little, you know, what is that thing? The little subscribe button. Hit the bell so you know how to be notified when we go live again or when new content is put up. I'm so grateful that y'all came to chat with your brother. And hey, Patsy's daughter, we're getting ready to jump off. Thank you so much for coming on and being with us. It's going to be live again. So in case you missed little pieces of it, right as I get this tightened up, it'll be live everywhere. So you'll be able to check it out shortly. I'm grateful for your time. I want to say, please, my brother, contract season, get at that young brother too. It's a wonderful business trying to uplift and help young people do their sports the right way, get their contract season, get that mind right. And, you know, I like to tell, I need to be off of here. I'm just hyping up this young brother. He's an amazing young man. Just always happy to see him. All right, y'all. Don't let this white hair fool you. I'm not as old as this long hair looks. I'm realizing I got to get to my barber. And my barber, if you see me, see how you got me out here looking? I'm going to start telling people. All right. I love y'all. I'll talk to y'all soon. Hachapu. Peace. Peace. Hachapu.